Around BVA. BVA honors fallen at Arlington Cemetery. Two photos accompany this first Around BVA entry. The first of the two shows two formally dressed gentlemen in a procession on a sunny day, the man on the left carrying the BVA organizational flag. The latter also has a hand on the shoulder of the other. In the background behind the two is a military chorus, and to their left a band is performing. The caption states, "As U.S. Navy Band plays the National Emblem March, and with Sea Chanters Chorus looking on, Lawrence Harrison and sighted guide Pastor Stan Wright depart Cemetery Amphitheater with dozens of other flag bearers." The second of the photos reveals two men dressed in dark suits and ties standing behind a colorful wreath. All but the very bottom portion of the wreath is visible in the photo. Immediately behind the two men is a metal railing, and in the distant background are large leafy trees, plants, and shrubs characteristic of the month of May. The caption reads, "Together with other organizations doing the same, Alex Libben, left, and Don Overton await their turn to lay the BVA wreath." The content of the entry begins. At patriotic services, parades, and wreath-laying ceremonies, BVA members and their families throughout the country paused on Memorial Day to remember the ultimate sacrifice of the hundreds of thousands of men and women who have given their lives to preserve the nation's freedoms. At Arlington National Cemetery, a mere 5.4 miles from the association's national headquarters, Mid-Atlantic Regional Group member Lawrence Harrison of Washington, D.C., carried the BVA flag in a special parade of colors witnessed by approximately 5,000 onlookers in the cemetery's Memorial Amphitheater. The procession, marching to the music of the National Emblem March, played by the United States Navy Band, signaled the start of the 155th Annual Remembrance Ceremony. Lawrence was accompanied by his friend Mike Jenkins, who marched with the U.S. flag, and his sighted guide and pastor, Stan Wright. Also attending the ceremony were Don Overton and Deputy Director of Government Relations Alec Libben, who together presented a BVA wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier following the ceremony. Don and his wife Peggy were invited guests at an early morning White House breakfast with representatives of other veteran service organizations. They also witnessed a presidential wreath-laying as the official party of the dignitaries arrived. Addressing the crowd were Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff General Mark A. Milley, Secretary of Defense Lloyd J. Austin III, and President Joseph R. Biden, Jr. The Navy Band accompanied the Sea Chanters Chorus in 4 different numbers: Musical Interlude, the National Anthem, This Land is Your Land, and God Bless America. Mission accomplished on Everest. A picture also accompanies this entry. 3 individuals, only one of whom has his face uncovered because of the extreme cold, pose for this image in a sitting position on what appears to be a mixture of ice and snow. A 4th person is seen standing off to the right in the background. All are equipped with heavy coats and hats in several layers. They are also wearing what look like oversized boots. The background is totally white, while the foreground is filled with the aforementioned ice and snow. The caption reads, "Against all odds and in the most challenging of conditions, Lonnie Bedwell, Wright, became only the 4th blind person to conquer Mount Everest." Pictured here, Lonnie's Sightless Summits team at the Everest Peak. The content of the entry is presented as follows. Describing Lonnie Bedwell as an extreme sports athlete can never again be adequate now that he and his courageous team from Sightless Summits beat all odds in conquering the summit of Mount Everest. The feat culminated on Monday, May 22, at approximately 4 p.m. local time. See adjacent photo. "Your disability is a part of you, but it does not define you," Lonnie once again reiterated upon reaching and touching a small mountaintop known only to a handful of other blind persons. "We are able to adapt and do so much more than we think if we simply work together, so let's get up and go live our lives to their fullest potential." Lonnie and the Sightless Summits team faced and endured nearly every type of weather condition and human challenge imaginable as they made their climb, including blowing and drifting snow, frostbite, physical and mental exhaustion, and lack of oxygen at altitudes of 26,000 feet or higher. Future issues of the Bulletin will detail this incredible journey. Midwinter meetings, testimony, highlight BOD Week in D.C. A photo with this Around BVA entry reveals 5 blinded veterans, all with white canes, standing together between 2 large, thick pillars inside a rotunda. All are dressed formally, with the 3 middle persons donning BVA garrison caps. The caption states, "Left to right in Russell Senate Office Building Rotunda during March Capitol Hill visits. Stephen Butler, Tracy Farrell, Joe McNeil, Wanda Grover, and Douglas Ingram." With emphasis on safeguarding ocular clinical standards of care, caregiver program clinical standards, compliance with transportation services, protections for guide and service dogs at VA facilities, and improving programs and services for women veterans, BVA National President Joseph D. McNeil Sr. presented BVA's legislative priorities for the current federal fiscal year at a joint session of the U.S. House and Senate Committees on Veterans Affairs. The March 8 in-person hearing, held on the House side of Capitol Hill, was the first of its kind since 2020 due to the pandemic. It also included brief presentations in panel format by the Veterans of Foreign Wars, the Jewish War Veterans, Wounded War Project, Tragedy Assistance Program for Survivors, Military Officers Association AMVETS, Gold Star Wives, Military Order of the Purple Heart, and the National Association of County Veterans Service Officers. A full contingent of staff and the BVA Board of Directors gave Joe a little moral support by lining up perfectly to quickly find seats directly behind him at the witness table. The board was in town March 5 through 11 for the annual midwinter meetings with staff members and others who service the organization. They also visited congressional offices during the 2 days leading up to the hearing, with nearly 30 appointments divided between 2 groups. As always, a written version of the presentation was submitted to Congress in advance and made accessible online by both congressional committees and BVA. To become familiar with this year's comprehensive written testimony document and those dating back to 2016, or to connect to the video stream of this year's proceedings, visit BVA's Government Relations page at https://bva.org/government-relations. Tom Miller presents BVA Legislator Award. An accompanying photo provides a side view of 2 gentlemen in a spacious office. The man on the left is in the process of giving the other a small, open box containing an object. 4 additional individuals, 2 of them partially obscured from view, are in the background. Behind them is an obscured view also of a bookcase and a U.S. flag. All are dressed in formal business attire, 2 with BVA garrison caps. The caption reads, "Chairman Mike Bost, right, receives BVA Legislative Award from Tom Miller, whose name the award now bears." Past BVA Executive Director, Director of Government Relations, and National President Tom Miller personally visited the offices of 2 congressional leaders this past week on 2 different days for the presentation of the association's newly named Thomas H. Miller Guiding Legislator of the Year Award in honor of his own advocacy work on behalf of blinded veterans and their families for more than 3 decades. The first 2 recipients of the award are Senator Robert P. Casey, Jr., Democrat, Pennsylvania, Chairman of the Senate Committee on Aging, and Representative Mike Bost, Republican, Illinois, District 12, Chairman of the House Committee on Veterans Affairs. Joined by current National President Joe McNeil and other board members, Tom thanked the 2 committee chairmen for their leadership in passing the bipartisan VA Website Accessibility Act 2 years ago, and more recently for their support of a December 2022 report detailing the findings of an 11-month investigation revealing widespread failure across the federal government to ensure that federal technology is accessible for people with disabilities, older adults, and veterans. While working professionally as the chief of VA Blind Rehabilitation in Waco, Texas, Tom Miller served as BVA's National Secretary from 1979 through 80, National Vice President from 1981 through 82, and National President from 1983 through 84. He left Waco in 1986 to serve BVA for the next 26 years as the organization's Director of Government Relations and later as Executive Director. For more than 8 of those years, he served in both roles simultaneously. Video salute to BVA stalwart, Dr. Robert A. Botenberg. The accompanying image reveals 2 formally dressed gentlemen standing side by side and looking directly ahead to pose for this photo. Together they are holding up a plaque. The man on the left is smiling broadly, while the one on the right shows a more serious look. Characteristic of the era, the ties of both men seem unusually wide. The caption states, in 1972, renowned psychologist Dr. Salvatore G. DeMichel, left, presented Bob Botenberg with the President's Trophy for Handicapped Americans of the Year on behalf of the President's Committee on Employment of the Handicapped. Photo courtesy of Robert S. Cox, Special Collections, and University Archives Research Center, University of Massachusetts at Amherst. The text of the tribute to Bob begins. Robert A. Bob Botenberg, BVA's 9th national president and a dedicated member of the association, both nationally and locally for more than 60 years, passed away March 11 in San Antonio, Texas, at the age of 98. Bob was blinded by German mortar fire in April 1945 when he was 20 years old, 3 weeks after BVA's founding and approximately 3 weeks before VE Day in Europe. His injuries occurred as he was serving as squad leader with the K Company of the 253rd Infantry Regiment, 63rd Division. He was hospitalized at Dibble Army General Hospital in Palo Alto, at Valley Forge, and at Avon Old Farms Convalescent Hospital. Bob earned bachelor's, master's, and Ph.D. degrees in psychology, all after losing his sight. In 1947, he organized and served as the chairman, the title at the time, of the Missouri Regional Group. While earning his Ph.D. at Stanford University, he was active in a regional group in the San Francisco Bay Area and later helped organize the South Texas Regional Group. He held a board of directors position from 1953 through 56 prior to his election as national vice president. Fast forward 45 years and many regional group positions later, Bob delivered the Father Carroll Luncheon Address at the 57th National Convention in San Antonio, having been well acquainted with the national chaplain during the latter's 25 years of service. At the time he was elected national president at age 34 on July 19, 1958, Bob was employed as a psychologist with the Human Resources Research Center at Lackland Air Force Base. He worked for the Air Force for 37 years. On August 27 of that same year, President Dwight D. Eisenhower signed into law an act of the 85th Congress formally incorporating the Blinded Veterans Association and granting the organization the congressional charter it retains today. Bob had participated in what the Bulletin at the time described as a massive effort to secure the charter while he was serving as national vice president. At one of the last national conventions Bob attended, he described the granting of the charter as one of the most memorable, meaningful, and satisfying memories of his life. He was an amazing man, overcoming each obstacle in his path, learning to ski at the age of 50, a strong swimmer, a carpenter and handyman, and a beloved father of 3 girls and husband to Dorothy Jean LaFoon Botenberg for nearly 70 years before her passing in 2016. His daughter Ann Botenberg Schindler recounted, "Bronze Braille flags find new home." An accompanying photo reveals a formally dressed gentleman at a portable podium located outdoors, addressing an audience seated in folding chairs. To his right is another man with a white cane and a BVA garrison cap. To the immediate right of the latter man, and slightly behind him, is a dark rectangular cloth covering a small segment of one of the building pillars. To the far left in the distant background is a table with BVA literature and a front banner containing the BVA emblem. The caption reads, Edivaldo Anjos, Associate Director of Outpatient Operations for the VA Gulf Coast Healthcare System, addresses the BVA constituency at unveiling of bronze Braille flag at the VA Pensacola Outpatient Clinic. Next to Anjos, Emerald Coast Regional Group member Darrell Goldsmith prepares to remove the cover hiding the plaque. The blurb begins. BVA's Louisiana, Mississippi Regional Group, led by officers Gary Scholerman and Joe Burns, presented and donated an American bronze Braille flag to WRBH-FM 88.3, a New Orleans radio station for the blind and print-impaired, on March 8. The regional group chose WRBH as a tribute to the work they do to keep the sight and print-impaired informed. Having opened its doors in 1980, WRBH has been on the air as a service to the blind and visually print-impaired for more than 40 years. Although best known for its popular reading of the news daily at 8 a.m., books of fiction, nonfiction, and great literature are also read throughout the day. In preparation for the presentation, WGNO-TV ran a March 7 news story describing the Braille flag and accompanying plaque that WRBH was to receive the next day and permanently place in the station's lobby. An interview with Joe, a past BVA national president, 2001 through 03, also aired on WRBH March 6 through 7. The regional group was added again on March 14, this time at the Lighthouse, Louisiana, New Orleans headquarters. Several members of the regional group and Lighthouse leadership participated in the presentation. Then, on March 28, BVA's Emerald Coast Regional Group was recognized by WEAR-TV in Pensacola, Florida, for the group's donation of a tactile, bronze Braille American flag at the VA community-based outpatient clinic. The donation was unveiled as a recognition and celebration of National Blinded Veterans Day, designated as such 13 years ago through a congressional resolution and proclamation by President Barack Obama. The flag was installed onto a structural pillar just outside the clinic's entrance. Following the ceremony, veterans and their families participated in demonstrations of prosthetic items such as talking watches and magnification devices, a distribution of materials about the variety of blind rehabilitation services within the VA system, and role plays that teach proper etiquette for sighted guides. Regional Group Secretary Paul Kaufman described the significance of the Braille flag and the donation to a WEAR-TV reporter. The television outlet covers northwestern Florida and southern Alabama. BVA members bond with VA staff at WSC. The adjoining photo reveals 3 individuals standing side by side in a room with several tables in the background and windows at the far back and left side. A man in the middle of the 3 and a lady at the far right are identified by their name badges as participants in a program or event. A lady at the left is holding up the back of her jacket that contains taped identifiers. These include the words Blind, Barb O&M, and Travel Trainer. Below Travel Trainer is a black and white stick figure of a blind person stepping forward with a cane. The caption states, "Left to right, Winter Sports Clinic Extraordinaire and Boise, Idaho Blind Rehabilitation Outpatient Specialist Barbara Fultz with BVA members Anthony Woodson and Michonne Harrison in Snowmass, Colorado Lodge." The account reads as follows. BVA members Anthony Woodson of the Illinois Regional Group, Michonne Harrison of the Mid-Atlantic Regional Group, Robert Bird, also of the Mid-Atlantic Regional Group, and Yoneka Trent of the Carolina Regional Group, all of whom are BVA ambassadors, were among the 79 veterans with a visual impairment who attended the recent National Disabled Veterans Winter Sports Clinic, WSC, in Snowmass, Colorado. "I encourage veterans of all skill levels to attend this life-changing event," said Anthony, a first-year participant. The 37th Annual WSC, sponsored jointly by VA and Disabled American Veterans and held this year from March 25 through April 1, provided approximately 400 total veterans with training and rehabilitation opportunities through adaptive skiing, sled hockey, scuba diving, and rock wall climbing. In addition to visual impairments, veterans with traumatic brain injuries, spinal cord injuries, amputations, and other severe disabilities are challenged to overcome perceived limitations. The theme of the WSC is Miracles on a Mountainside. Highlighting the week for Anthony, Michonne, and several others was the work of Barbara Fultz, a blind rehabilitation outpatient specialist, BROS, with extensive training and skills in orientation and mobility, who was on staff for the entire week and held special, well-attended O&M sessions open to all participants. These sessions were very rewarding and beneficial, particularly for first-time attendees, said Michonne. Anthony had a similar impression. Quote, Barbara's addition to the WSC staff for the first time was a real benefit for those with visual impairments. We need to emphasize how important it is for these professionals to be funded and with us at these events." Unquote. WSC Director Teresa Parks agreed with the assessment of the veterans. Quote, "We continue to try and improve each year the things we can do better in serving the visually impaired veterans who attend the WSC. We appreciate hearing from them firsthand so we know things that we can do to improve." Our team leader coordinator for the WSC, who is also a BROS, recommended that Barbara Fultz join our team this year. Barbara was amazing and a true asset to our efforts at the WSC. We got a lot of great feedback on this edition, unquote. Quote, in honor of Blinded Veterans Day on March 28, Barbara provided a platform for the attending veterans with sight loss to connect with one another in a meet and greet or fireside chat approved by Teresa Parks, said Michonne, who spearheaded the meeting and has arranged for a similar meeting to become an annual component of the WSC in the future. Barbara also shared her expertise and educated the attendees on services offered by VA at the meeting, she said. At the same gathering, Robert Byrd informed the group about the importance of H.R. 333, Disabled Veterans Tax Termination Act, encouraging those present to contact their elected legislative representatives to request their support of the bill. Yonaka spoke on behalf of BVA as an organization, providing information and answering questions, while also recounting her experience at the BVA annual congressional testimony last month. General information about the 2024 WSC is already available. Since participant spaces fill up extremely fast, it is never too early to investigate the possibility of attending next year. If interested in participating in the WSC's adaptive sports events or in attending as one of some 700 volunteers, visit https://wintersportsclinic.org. Richmond chapter commemorates Blinded Veterans Day at VAMC. An accompanying group photo, taken in front of a partially visible mural inside a hospital, accompanies this subsection of Around BVA. If a guide dog is included in the count, there are 11 subjects in the photo. 3 white canes and 4 BVA T-shirts also stand out. The caption states, back row, left to right, Richmond chapter veterans, Carolyn McManius, Stevie Bradley, chapter president, Doris Jones, Linwood Gray, Erlene Mahoney, Paul Whitfield, Kai Ellison, and Kenneth Harvey. Front row bending downward for photo, VIST coordinator Sherry Geiger and Dr. V. Harvey. Relaxing on the floor, Kenneth Garvey's guide dog, Siebert. BVA extends kudos to members from the Richmond chapter of the Mid-Atlantic Regional Group and a strongly supportive cast from VA as they commemorated Blinded Veterans Day on March 28 at the Richmond, Virginia VA Medical Center. It was a very successful and fun-filled day, said Richmond chapter member Vanita S. Harvey, Ph.D., known also as Dr. V. Quote, our chapter president, Stevie Bradley, welcomed us and expressed excitement about the event being what he called a purpose-driven occasion, unquote. Stevie's excitement had genuine merit as the well-organized and well-planned occasion was a collaborative effort of Richmond chapter members and the Medical Center's Visual Impairment Services team, VIST, Recreational Therapy Department, and Center for Development and Civic Engagement. According to Dr. V, BVA information, T-shirts, and hats were on site and available for purchase throughout the event, and several BVA applications were provided to prospective members. VIST coordinator Sherry Geiger was pleased by the way the event exemplified resilience and determination of blinded veterans, while optometrist Dr. Michael Peterson enjoyed what seemed to be a higher morale than usual of his blinded and low-vision patients on this special day. We had a wonderful time, and it was a great way of bringing attention to the blinded veterans here at the Richmond VA Medical Center, Sherry later said. Chief Recreational Therapist Sharon Hicks kicked it all off with a reading of House Resolution 80 from the 111th Congress, issued in March 2010 and signed by President Barack Obama just 2 weeks later on April 17, now 13 years ago to the day. Besides acknowledging BVA's humble beginnings and storied history, the resolution calls on all Americans to remember blinded veterans on March 28 in future years. The highlight of the day was the scavenger hunt, said Dr. V. In a word, it was awesome. Planned and organized by Rehabilitation Services team members Greg Chittum and Sarah Jennings, the hunt creatively encouraged friendly competition while affording those who participated the opportunity to sharpen their navigation skills. The activity involved teams of 2 to 3 blind or low-vision veterans set out on a timed journey to see who could follow clues and instructions with the goal of locating street signs at various locations throughout the hospital. Our Richmond members can't say enough about the experience of spending time reconnecting, reaching out to potential new members, and enjoying the spirit of competition together through the Scavenger Hunt Challenge, said Dr. V. Stevie closed the event by telling us it was a big win. BVA Board of Directors names new national chaplain. Kenneth Harvey of the Mid-Atlantic Regional Group is BVA's newly named national chaplain. The Board of Directors and membership thank outgoing chaplain Dr. Ron Lester for his outstanding service these past 4 years. Chaplain Harvey is a retired U.S. Army First Sergeant, having served 28 years as a topographic mapping expert. He was medically retired due to a traumatic brain injury and several other injuries resulting from a tragic accident. He was one of the first soldiers to receive care for TBI trauma at Walter Reed Army Medical Center. His faith and strength allowed him to successfully complete his career at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Chaplain Harvey was also recently elected as the post commander for American Legion Varina Post 233 in Henrico, Virginia. He supports youth and senior groups, but spends extra time as a mentor with troubled juveniles. He is also a published author and poet. He remains active in training service dogs, engaging in adaptive sports, and assisting fellow veterans as a certified whole health peer specialist. Chaplain Harvey is a member of the National Association of Professional Christian Ministers. He is also affiliated with the American Association of Christian Counselors. He is married to Dr. V. Harvey, also an active BVA member. "We learn new ideas and grow as one," he said. "My vision and mission are to present relevance to being inclusive and open to all church and religious affiliations of our BVA members." Alexandria, Virginia dentist offers unexpected generous support. Dr. Hijo Han, an experienced Alexandria, Virginia dentist with a unique approach to serving his patients, recently opened his own dental practice with his wife, Amelia, after years of working in a corporately owned setting. Dr. Han has offered to partner with BVA as a sponsor of future recreational rehabilitation activities and to donate $5 to the organization for each new patient he receives in the foreseeable future. Dr. Han and BVA are essentially neighbors. The practice is a 13-minute drive and 3.4 miles from BVA National Headquarters. To access a recent article published in the locally based Zebra Press about Dr. Han's new practice and long-held philosophy and values, click here. Southern Cal creates own version of March Madness. Southern California Regional Group President Ken Assam reports that despite a slow and late arrival of spring this year to the lower portion of the Golden State, his fellow veterans were motivated to spring into action this month with their own version of March Madness. First, it was off to the Anaheim Marriott Hotel in their own backyard for the 38th annual CSUN, California State University, Northridge, Assistive Technology Conference, held this year, March 13 through 17. The conference is internationally recognized as the premier event in the field that brings together technology and persons with disabilities. During his 2-day visit at the conference, Ken reviewed more than 100 exhibits of products and services for the disabled, many of which focused on the blind and low vision. Products that most caught his attention were no-jab graphite folding canes that eliminate those gut shots, all-terrain canes that are designed for navigation on a rough surface, walk signals that make every pedestrian traffic light accessible. An iPhone app will illuminate the phone screen with a red or green to reflect the lights, walk or don't walk signal. JAWS for kiosks, such as those placed in McDonald's establishments, creating self-service experiences that can be accessible to all. Real Sam pocket phones, a single-button, voice-controlled device that is ideal for less technologically savvy individuals. Gemini Superprint, which prints Braille and ink text simultaneously on parallel lines on the same page with a single pass through the printer. Next on the calendar for the regional group was a March 25 through 26 BVA display in front of the local Statter Brothers Market, Saturday and Sunday, located in Santa Clarita. The venue was selected because Santa Clarita has the highest percentage of veterans of any city in California. The objectives of the exhibit were threefold: increase community awareness of BVA, recruit new members of the association, raise funds for the Southern California Regional Group. We made use of the bronze Braille American flag to gain the attention of many, including that of a 6-year-old boy who donated $2 after learning about the flag, Ken said. It wasn't our largest donation, but we considered it our best one. Ken also recounts conversing with a woman who donated to BVA last November when the group had set up a similar exhibit. She told me we'd given her the information about where to purchase a Braille flag and that she had purchased two, one of which went to her visually impaired father, who was overjoyed to receive it. On March 28, the regional group put up the display at the Santa Clarita Valley Senior Center in commemoration of National Blinded Veterans Day. The center, which serves hundreds of older veterans, is ranked one of the best senior centers in the country. On March 29, interested regional group members attended a luncheon commemorating National Vietnam War Veterans Day.